This morning we're going to take a look at Genesis chapter 37, verses 23, 24, and verse 28. And we will also be looking at Genesis 39, verses 1 through 5. Genesis 37, verses 23 and 24. And I'm going to read from the Amplified Version. It says, when Joseph had come to his brothers, they stripped him of his distinctive long garment which he was wearing. Then they took him and cast him into the well-like pit, which was empty. There was no water in it. Verse 28, then the Ishmaelites, merchants, were passing by, and the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the well. And they sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph captive into Egypt. The second verse was 37 and 28. We're going to read 39, 1 through 5. You ready? And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, and Egyptians brought him to the hand of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down. I'm reading from the King James Version, so yours is a little different. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord had made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house and all that he had put in his hand. And it came to pass, from the time that he had made him overseer in his house, and over all he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptians' house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. The topic for today is, it's not the end. Joseph was the youngest of his 12 brothers. And if you were to read back earlier in Genesis 36, 37, it gives it in a little bit more detail. It talks about the relationship that Joseph had with his brothers. And Joseph had a dream, and he dreamed about some stalks of corn that bowed down in the field to him, which was symbolic of his family bowing down and worshiping him. So because his brothers did not want to bow down to their younger brother, they took him and threw him in the pit, which is what the scriptures were when we first read in chapter 37. They threw him in the pit. So then you have these Ishmaelites that are coming along, and the brothers was like, oh, okay, we're going to sell him. So we ain't even got to worry about his vision coming to pass. That was he dreamed, it ain't going to happen, because we're going to send him away. We're going to send him to Egypt. And so then, as the Ishmaelites, they bought Joseph for 20 pieces of silver, took him to Egypt, and he became a servant in Potiphar's house. But the Bible says, as we read in chapter 39, that even though Joseph was a servant in Potiphar's house, he still had favor. He had favor with Potiphar, and he had favor with God. Just like I mentioned a while ago. The Bible says we have favor with God and we have favor with man. So although his brothers thought that it was the end of him, that they had destroyed him, that they got rid of him forever, God said, not so. You're trying to do him wrong. You're trying to get over on him. You're trying to rid him out your life and destroy what it is that I want to do in his life, but it's not the end. Because although he was sold into slavery, guess what? I still have a plan for his life. And that's what God is saying to us. We go through heartache and pain. People scandalize our name. They talk about us. They try to write us off. But God said, it's not the end. I still have a plan for your life. regardless of what situation or circumstance you may find yourself in, we still have favor with God, and God is still able to rise us up. That's just like some homeless people. Some homeless people have greater faith than people that got everything that they think that they can need because they're trusting God. And God blesses those. The word says, blessed is those who put their trust in the Lord. If you ain't got nothing, you have no choice but to trust God. But those of us that are blessed and have clothes, food, water, heat, whatever else, we should thank God because God, that could be me on side of the street begging for food. That could be me that's living over there in a shelter and I got to get there by a certain time or else I won't have a bed. That could be any of us, except for the grace of God, except for the mercy of God. So, Joseph, he was a dreamer. And not only was he a dreamer, but he was also able to interpret dreams. So we're sitting here, they throw him into the pit, and all the brothers didn't know that he had been sold, because Reuben, he said, okay, Reuben was feeling kind of bad about what was going on, and it says that he had went and he looked into the pit, and when he found out that Joseph wasn't there, the Bible says he rent his clothes. He tore his clothes because he was sorrowful. He was like, oh no, what's happened to my brother? You know, I know I had part in throwing him in here, but I was trying to go rescue him, but he ain't there. You know, he thought that he had died or something. So God said, okay, I'm going to send Joseph over to Potiphar's house. And while he's there, I'm going to give him favor with the ruler of the house. See, we can be in a situation that does not look favorable to us, or in man's eyes is not favorable to us. But God is saying, you know what? I'm still going to give you favor. You know what? I'm still going to work it out. You know what? I know that your boss is hard, but I'm still going to bless you. I'm going to give you increase. I'm going to make you the supervisor on your job, or the sergeant, or the first sergeant, or whatever your next rank is. You know, God is saying, okay, it looks one way, but I want to show you the good in your situation. So we find here in verse 39 and verse 4, it says, and Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him. Even though Joseph was enslaved, he found grace with Potiphar, and he served him because that's what he was supposed to do. See, God honors us when we do what we're supposed to do. You may not always like what your superior, whomever your superior is in life, on your job, in school, whatever. You may not always like what they say, but if you serve them, guess what? It'll help you out. Because the Bible says, whatsoever you find your hands to do it unto the Lord. So that's what Joseph was doing. And as he did that, it goes on to say that Joseph became overseer of the house. Joseph became the man in charge. Your brother stole you in a pit, tried to kill you, sell you into slavery, but the person that you're serving, God rises you up and puts you in charge. That's the favor of God. You know, people on your job, in your class, school, family, whatever, may be talking about you, may say, oh, that's just Kirsten. Oh, that's just Mike. You know, he need to pick up a little weight if he's trying to be in the army. You know, people say crazy stuff. But God is saying, just watch what I do. Just watch what I do. Watch me work it out. Watch me turn things around in their favor. And guess what? He did. So there was a famine in the land. There was a famine in the land. God raised Joseph up. Let me back up. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph. But Joseph said, no, it ain't going down that way. Because you know what? I'll sin against God. Sometimes people try to get us to do certain things, especially in corporate America, to get ahead. But when we do what we're supposed to do, God will still favor us. And Potiphar's wife, Joseph was